I don't think if it's ordered, no, I mean, when would it show?
Becky said she.
Too hot to go.
Mm-hmm.
Too hot to go. All right, I got 5 o'clock, so we're gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order. Lisa, go ahead and, Open Meetings Act, posted where noise is on northwest wall. Lisa, would you call the roll?
Dustin?
Here.
Heather? Here. Brad?
Yes.
Ken?
Here.
All present and accounted for. We join in the pledge of allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, everybody. Move on to the consent agenda. As always, you can consider items individually if you have questions, or you can pass them all in one motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion and a second, any discussion?
I wasn't here, so do I abstain because I from the minutes? I looked at the clothes and everything else.
I think you're
All right.
Any other questions? Call the roll.
Heather?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Dustin?
Motion carried unanimously. Moving on to the, no appointments tonight, no report. I've been gone the last 12 days or so I don't know even what's going on in town. You guys can tell me as we move along. There's one less bear in Canada, I can tell you that. But yeah, we'll move on to no public hearings or old business. So the first item on the regular agenda is the audit report. We got Michael Kovac here.
You mind if I stay here, or do you want me to get up, or what do you?
Wherever you're comfortable.
I'll just stay here if you guys don't mind.
That's fine.
So I'm gonna go through the bound audit report that you guys have in front of you. I'm not gonna go through all of it, obviously, just hit some of the highlights, the details, or something, go through it in just a little bit of detail. If you have any questions I'm going through, just go ahead and ask. So we're gonna start on page 2. This is the independent auditor's report. Underneath the opinions paragraph, we had an unmodified opinion, means everything was presented fairly, no material misstatements. That's the type of opinion that we want to have each year, obviously. Jumping back to page 11, in the middle there, we have a section for the capital assets. We kind of have a little list of some of the major capital outlay events during the year. So we spent about $22,000 on the fire alarm system, $104,000 on pickleball courts, $60,000 on an excavator, and then about $2.1 million on the Main Street project. And that's going to include the street, water, and sewer. We kind of put it all into one project there. The top of page 12 has a table of the city's outstanding debt. At September 30th of 2025, the city had just over $3.4 million of debt, compared to about $2.7 million the year before that. Our debt did increase by about $670,000. That's just due to the loan advances on that Main Street project. Page 15 is the start of the actual financial statements. So this page is going to be the balance sheet for the governmental funds. These are presented on the modified cash basis, so it's only going to be cash and CDs and county treasurer cash. No receivables, capital assets, those aren't reported. So the general fund had total cash of about $1.6 million. Of that, about $689,000 is assigned for park and pool improvements. About $185,000 is assigned for budget stabilization. When we adopted the budget for 93 of 25, we had budgeted to spend down those general fund cash reserves, so that shows it's assigned. So about $723,000 of cash was unassigned that we could spend at our discretion. Street fund had about $704,000 of cash. That's all restricted for street projects. LB 840 had $485,000 of cash restricted for economic development. Debt service had $406,000 of cash restricted for debt service. And then those other governmental funds will include the smaller ones. It's going to be the community improvement, the housing development, and then the ARPA, which we ended up transferring all that money out this year. So they had total cash of $212,000. Of that, I have $156,000 that's restricted for community improvement, and then $56,000 restricted for federal programs for the housing. Page 17 shows the revenue and expenses for the governmental funds. The third line from the bottom shows the change in fund balance. It's basically be the net income or loss for the year. The general fund did increase $342,000. Street fund increased $186,000. LB 840 increased about $70,000. Debt service decreased $292,000. We did transfer a lot out of that debt service fund into the streets to help with that project. And then those other funds decreased $300,000, and that's just mostly due, we did transfer $136,000 of the ARPA funds out, and then we had just a lot of capital outlay out of those funds, mostly in that community improvement. Page 19 is the balance sheet for the proprietary funds or the utility funds. These are on the accrual basis, so in addition to the cash, we're reporting the receivables, capital assets, all the liabilities. Water fund had total assets about $3.2 million. Of that, the operating cash was about $685,000. We had $687,000 of liabilities. We had total net position or equity about $2.5 million. Sewer fund had $5.5 million of total assets, about $339,000 of that was going to be in operating cash. Total liability is about $2.1 million, so your total net position is about $3.3 million. And then the garbage fund had $662,000 of total assets. Actually had pretty good reserves there, $412,000 in cash. $304,000 of liabilities, so your total net position is about $357,000. Page 20 is the revenue and expenses for the enterprise funds. So I'll point out a couple different numbers on here. About halfway down is the operating income to the loss. That's going to be what we actually did from just the normal operations. And then that third line from the bottom will be the change in net position or the total income or loss for the year. So the water fund had an operating loss of $67,000. We had a bunch of grant income for the Main Street project. So we ended up with a total change in net position of a positive $244,000. Sewer fund had an operating loss of $110,000. Again, about $306,000 of grant income, transferred in some from debt service for loan payments. So its total change in net position was a positive $235,000. The garbage fund had operating income of $791. Interest expense about $10,000, so its change in net position was about a negative $9,000. So across the board, really, the water, sewer both had big losses from operations, mostly due to the depreciation. We're just not charging the rates, basically at the same rate that we're charging off our equipment and infrastructure. So we're not going to be building any reserves for that equipment replacement. And then the garbage basically broke even on operations. But we did have about $100,000 of depreciation in that garbage fund also, though. Page 12 or page 21 is a statement of cash flows. So it's going to be about 2/3 of the way down. It's indented, shows the increase or decrease in cash and cash equivalents. The water fund total cash reserves decreased by about $207,000. We generated about $70,000 of cash from operations. Had capital outlay by $869,000, bunch of grant proceeds. Basically, that $70,000 of cash from operations isn't a lot. We do have really good cash reserves in the water fund, but we're not generating a lot of cash for equipment replacement or any capital outlay. So we'll kind of talk on that here in a little bit when we go over my benchmarking. Sewer fund, its cash reserves increased by about $1,400. We did generate $71,000 of operations. Garbage fund, cash reserves increased by about $14,000. It generated $100,000 from operations though. So we are generating a pretty good cash reserves in that sewer and garbage. Water fund doesn't have a lot when you look at those. I'm not going to go over any detail, but I'll just point out that it's in there on page 53, clear at the back. We do have the detail for those non-major funds, the community improvement, housing development, the ARPA. And then behind that on page 55, we do have the revenue expenses for each of the general fund departments. So we show the detail for the admin, police, fire, ambulance, street lighting, cemetery, park and rec, pool, library, and the museum. Any questions on that so far? If we don't have any questions on that, we'll move on to the letters to management. There's two letters. First one, the 2-page one, says we don't have segregation of duties. We're never gonna get rid of that comment. It's just not feasible to have enough office staff to split up the duties, to have true segregation of duties. We've got a few people over there, and we split them up the best we can, and they do a great job with their duties. It's just you guys as a council, mayor, just need to continue with the oversight of the financial reporting. And the years that I've worked with you guys, I feel like we do a good job of that. We always have really good discussion going through the budget. So just continue up with the oversight. And in addition to that, there's a 4-page letter. And on the second page of that, underneath the corrected and uncorrected misstatements, this is where we would list out the journal entries that we would make. So we had 6 audit adjustments on the governmental funds and only 13 on the business type. That might sound like a lot of adjustments, but it really isn't. We normally make probably closer to 30, 35 journal entries on a city your size. Most of these journal entries are going to be the fact that books are kept on the cash basis. And then when we come in and do the audit and adjust those cash basis numbers to the accrual basis on those utility funds, basically adjusting the receivables, capital outlay depreciation, adjusting the payables. It's just the normal journal entries that we make. Nothing was unusual. Like I said, it's just going from that cash to accrual conversion. On the 3rd page of that letter, or the next page at the bottom, is where we're listing of our audit findings or issues. So we do have 3 items. And the first one, I'm not necessarily saying we need to increase our rates, but I always want to remind you to always be watching those utility rates. I do 25 of these audits, and this comment is in all of mine. You always want to be watching this, because when you get behind, it's really hard to get caught up. So always be thinking about, do we need to increase these rates? Number 2, interest on the CDs wasn't being recorded, and we should just get that recorded anytime they pay interest quarterly or when they renew. Just make sure we get that recorded. And then the 3rd one, the seasonal employees. We didn't have any wage reports that shows what they should be making. We should have documentation on that. And then there were a few other employees that didn't have the correct wages. So we just want to make sure that we're getting the right wages published and we actually follow that. Like I said, staff does a good job. It was a really clean audit, so it makes it easy for us. The last thing I'm going to go over is the little 2-page benchmarking that I handed out when I got here tonight. So our firm we're up to about 85 audits in cities and villages across the state. We're by far the largest municipal auditor in the state, so we have a lot of experience and a lot of data that we can pull from. So what we use that for is we just split up in different population groups and then compare you to different cities your size. So you're going to be in the 1,000 to 3,000 population group. The average population for that group is 1,567. Our population is 1,616, so we're right on that average, right in the middle there. The average valuation for a city in your group is going to be about 127 million. Ours is just under 110 million. On a per capita basis, though, we're per person in town. The average is about 81,000. We're at 68,000. So our valuation is going to be quite a bit lower than the typical city our size. And that'll come into play here in a few items here.
And this is just based off your data, not the whole state, just the ones you do.
Some of these will be, like some of the revenue ones will be based on statewide.
Okay.
Some like the expenses are based on the ones that we do.
Right. Okay.
But like the sales tax, property, the state allocation, that is going to be statewide numbers because that's all public information that you can go out and get from the Department of Revenue. So number 1, the unrestricted net position versus total net position basically tells us that the city has adequate resources just to meet its day-to-day obligations. So when we look at the government-wide or the city as a whole, we recommend 35%. You guys are at 21.9% this year from 19.7% a year ago. We're a little bit low on that, and it's just due to the fact that when we look at these government activities, we have a lot of restricted cash, and when we look at the business type activities, we have a lot of capital assets on the book. I mean, we have a lot invested in water and sewer systems, so that kind of pushes that number down when we look at the utility side. But otherwise, when we look at the cash reserves, we're going to be in good shape, so even though we're low here, I'm not concerned about it. For the governmental activities or the tax-supported funds, we recommend 25%. You're just below that at 20%. Up from 17.8% a year ago. 23 we're at 16.5%, so we've seen some improvement each year, a little bit below to what we'd recommend, and we're only below that just because, like I said, we do have a lot of restricted cash between the street reserves and some of that sales tax money for the LB 840 or the debt service. Within the business type activities, the utility funds, we recommend 40%. You're at 24%, and it's just because we have so much invested in capital outlay for those departments. So number 2 looks at the top 4 sources of revenue for just those government activities, and this is going to be, most of these will be the statewide numbers. So the sales tax, the typical city your size gets about $294 per capita for sales tax revenue. We're at $379 this year. A year ago we were at $426, so we're still well above the typical city our size. We had a decrease from a year ago, but that's kind of been this trend statewide, is the sales tax revenue has just been down this year. I'm not sure why, but it's just been across the state, the sales tax revenue has been down. But we're still well above average on that. Property taxes, the average is $359 per capita. We're at $373, up from $342 a year ago. Go back to 23, we were at $259. The big increase from 23 to 24 is when we put that 10-cent levy in for the care center. That actually shows up in our property tax revenue, and then we have an expense that goes out. So it does kind of bump this number up. State allocation, the average is $238. This year we're at $342. A year ago we were at $371. 23 was $224. So there's kind of an anomaly there, just because we had basically our highway allocation was getting withheld from 23 to 24 just because of the timing on the audits getting done. So 24 actually had 16 months of highway allocation instead of the normal 12. Franchise fees, the average is $112 per capita. We're at $189 this year, up from $185 a year ago, so we do have good franchise fee revenue. Number 3 looks at the detail for the larger state allocations. So for the highway allocation or the street funding, the average city your size gets $166 per capita. We're at $183 this year. A year ago it was $228, but that's because we had those 16 months. If you go back to 23, we were 106, so we were missing an additional 4 months there. So as we get these audits done more timely than what had been done in the past, these will even out. We'll have the 12 months of revenue every year. The equalization is going to be state aid to equalize property taxes. So there's a formula based on your valuation, population, and your own tax levy. So because our valuation is going to be a little bit lower on the per capita side, we're going to qualify for more aid. So the typical city your size gets $72 per capita. We're at $107 this year, just because our valuation. So because we can't generate the same property tax revenue, because of our valuation, we do get more aid because of that. Number 4 looks at the governmental spending. So this excludes capital outlay and debts, which is going to be the operating expenses. For the admin, the average is $181. We're at $249 this year, up from $241 a year ago. 23 was $271. We're on the high side there. It's probably just due to the fact that we don't allocate some of the wages and some of those expenses that other cities will get allocated across the entire city, that we're leaving some of those in just the admin. Police, which is kind of misleading now because we don't really have police, it's just code enforcement. The average is about $159 per capita. We're at $44 this year. A year ago it was $127, and we had made that change from paying the county to just doing our own code enforcement. 23 was $170 per capita. So just from a year ago to this year, we had $134,000 in savings. If you go back to what we were actually spending in 23, it's going to be quite a bit more than that. So we've saved a lot of money by getting rid of that contract with the county and doing our own just code enforcement. Fire and ambulance, the average is $33 per capita. We're at 16, same as a year ago. Park, the average is 93. We're at $112 this year. Slight increase from a year ago, we were 107. Pool, the average is 76. We're well below that at $28. A year ago, we were at $44. Library, the average is 84. We're right on that at 82. And the cemetery, the average is 33. And we're just below that at $29. Number 5, when we compare to the outstanding general obligation debt, the valuation basically tells us if the city has too much debt. So anything below 3% is going to be excellent. We're at 0.36. So when we look at just our GO debt, we're in excellent shape there. Number 6, when we look at the unassigned fund balance compared to just the general fund expenditures, it gives us an idea if we have adequate resources in that just the general fund to meet its day-to-day obligations and programs. So we recommend 30% there. We're at 62.6 this year, double what we were a year ago. We were at 30.5, so we had a big increase in those general fund cash reserves. So we're in great shape there. Number 7, we recommend having 12 months of street operating expenses in reserve. You guys have 19 months this year, up from 16.3 a year ago. So even though we've gone through a big street project, we've used a lot of debt service money, the ARPA money obviously helped. A lot of grant money, so we've been able to maintain good street reserves as far as cash-wise there. Number 8 looks at the property tax levies. So the typical city your size across the entire state will have a 39-cent general levy. Ours is at 45 cents. We have an additional 10-cent special levy. Now, there's not very many cities that have that. And then the typical city your size will also have a 10-cent debt service levy, and we don't have any debt service levy. So on the total, the average levy for a city your size across the state is 49 cents. We're at 55 cents.
You said 49?
Yeah, the average will be 49 cents across the state between all 3 levies. Number 9, when we compare the net depreciable capital assets after we've charged them off for depreciation back to its original cost. This basically tells us how old the equipment infrastructure is, so the lower these percentages get, the more important it is that we have cash reserve to maintain those assets or potentially replace those. So we recommend staying over 35%. You guys are at 52% on the governmental this year, 58% on the business type. Increases over the prior year just because that Main Street project. We're in good shape there. We actually will recommend it that we have any cash reserves for equipment replacement based on those being over 50%. Number 10 kind of looks at the utility rates. So when we compare the operating income back to the total operating revenue, we recommend a 15% return on those utility charges to generate cash for just the operations, equipment replacement, debt service. You guys are a little different because a lot of your debt service is going to get repaid through that sales tax money in the debt service fund. So again, we recommend a 15% return. This year the water fund was a negative 25% compared to a 4% return a year ago. Sewer fund was a negative 26%. A year ago was a negative 17%. 23 was a negative 2%. The trash fund this year was 0.2%. A year ago was 6.8. The year before that was 8.9. So we've seen decreases across the board, really in all 3 departments the last 3 years. I'm not saying we need to increase our rates because we do have a negative return, which isn't ideal. But that return is, as I talked earlier, is just due to the depreciation and the fact that we've got a lot of sales tax money that we're using for debt service, and that we do have really good cash reserves across the board in all 3 of those departments. I'm not going to say that we need to increase rates, but it's definitely something we want to be looking at. If we get to a point where we're not actually generating cash from operations, we would probably want to look at those rates. Or if we need to start using some of those cash reserves for debt service, if we wouldn't have the sales tax revenue to pay that debt, we'd want to look at those rates. But as of right now, despite those negative returns, I think we're in okay shape with those rates. It's just something that we want to keep an eye on going forward. Number 11 looks at the debt coverage ratio, which basically tells us if our rates are set high enough to actually service our debt. So this should be at least 1.5. And I know our debt's going to get serviced out of the sales tax money out of that debt service fund, so it doesn't really apply too much, but it just gives you an idea that if we didn't have the sales tax money, if our rates would be set high enough. The water fund would be, because it would have its ratio is 1.7. Sewer funds would be 0.85, and the trash fund's 1.3. So it'd really just be that sewer fund that would probably would be in trouble if we didn't have that sales tax money. So again, those utility rates, we just really just keep an eye on those going forward.
We did
Adjust them last month.
You did just adjust those last month? Okay.
They go effective August, right?
August 1st.
Okay. Then the last one looks at the cash reserves. So for the general fund, we recommend $560,000 for operations. You guys have $723,000, up from $358,000 a year ago. Only $52,000 in 2023. So we've seen a lot of improvement in those general fund cash reserves, up to the point now where we're actually well above what we would recommend. The business type activities or utility funds, we recommend $410,000 for operations, $138,000 for restricted. That's going to be basically the cash that we need to have on hand to cover any of our customer deposits. So total reserves about $550,000. You have almost 1.6 million this year. A year ago, we were at 1.7, and 23 we were about 1.5. So again, we have really good cash reserves in those, so even though you just did increase those rates, which will help going forward. But really across the board, you guys do have really good cash reserves, and the general has good, utility funds have good, your street fund has good reserves. So we're in good shape financially. We should be able to service all of our debt that we've got. Yeah, I think we're just in pretty good shape, so.
So we can spend some.
So we do have some money available to spend, so.
I mean, because we've been talking about street projects ever since I've been here.
Yeah, me too.
We could do some things and not get ourselves in trouble. Sounds to me, I mean, that's a lot of numbers, and I don't mean to interrupt, are you?
No, that's all I've got, so.
But it's a lot of numbers, but it sounds like we're a little high, a little low, overall in good shape. Is that?
Yeah, overall, I mean, really across the board, we do have good cash reserves. The street fund, to have 19 months in reserve there is really good. I don't have very many that even hit the 12 months. So the fact that you've got the 12 months and you're over that by 7 months, like I said, we've got really good reserves there. The only thing is we do have a lot of debt with the Main Street project. It's just a matter of, if our sales tax revenues can be able to service all of that. I think based on our budgets, we think it will be. But yeah, I think we're in pretty good shape, so.
All right, anybody got questions for Michael?
So the segregation of duties, just the accounting standards, you have to tell us that every year.
Yeah, that comment's not gonna go away. It is what it is. Like I said, we do 85 of these, and we might have one. The city of Hastings would be the only one. I haven't looked it up, but they might be the only one that doesn't. Otherwise, I know the rest of them have it. It's just not feasible in a local government to have that much staff to have the true segregation of duties. So that comment's gonna be there every year, and it's just the standards require it. Like I said, the staff that you do have, we split them up, the duties, the best that we can, and they do a good job with those duties, so.
Do we have a budget date set for August?
You just brought me the engagement letter.
Okay.
Yeah, so when we get into July, we'll get a date set for you guys, and we'll be back sometime in August to go over the budget, yeah.
Probably, it's always about the third week, isn't it?
This one's in August usually.
Yeah, I think you guys are normally towards the end of August, because I think we've typically waited till we have the actual evaluation, I think.
Usually they're on the 20th
Okay.
of the month, so usually shortly thereafter, I think.
Yeah, we normally that last week of August. So,
All right, well, thanks.
you bet.
See you in August.
See ya.
If you guys got all that.
We did one.
Lot there, but yeah, it sounds like we're in good shape, so. Moving on. We'll carry over from last month, discuss the agricultural zoning within 1 mile zoning jurisdiction. Carol has to be back on the agenda. Did you have anything you wanted to say, Carol?
Yes, I do. And I was fortunate enough to visit with a few of you personally. Heather, I attempted, but I didn't get to visit with you. And so I'm going to pass out what I had given, and this is what I'm kind of going to talk about tonight. And Dustin has what I had given out earlier. It's all the same. Just had a brief overview. And Mrs. Kemp, you had visited about the new bill. My attorney says that's strictly county zoning based on these pig facilities in Cherry County so that that doesn't apply to my situation as a subdivision. I have full bill.
Right, no, there was something in the legislature, and there's been some consternation on this 1 mile. Greg, do you remember hearing this?
Lincoln had some issues, but that was over voting in city elections, I think.
I think people that
was
said if
1
we're
mile.
within the 1 mile zoning radius, we should have the right to vote in the elections. And that tried to go through the legislature, didn't go anywhere. So that's a little bit of the vein of what you're getting at here.
Yes, let's see, I didn't give everybody what I was gonna speak on tonight, so. Basically then, I wanna say, I'm in the 1 mile jurisdiction, and I am a subdivision. This has been platted out, and each in lots, which I gave you last time around, the surveyed plat, which was in 1982 that my late husband and I purchased this property. And as we understood at that time, there wasn't any animals. I don't have that in writing, so I can't say on that, but anyway, and yes, I have met the young individuals that the gal had purchased, Kiara Troxel, that I had a copy of that last week on the information from the county assessor that she had purchased that, and it is less than an acre, like .88, and Lisa had said the new maximum, which is on this brief overview that I gave you. It says, livestock and hoofed animals in residential or suburban zoning, the keeping of horses, cattle, pigs, and sheep is highly restricted or prohibited altogether. And the zoning codes often mandate a minimum size such as 3 acres, which is what Lisa had said. And so they're definitely below the 3-acre limit. Investing with them, yes, they are going to move in a cabin or something, and they do have hogs. Didn't tell me how many, but when I mentioned this is a rural subdivision and restriction on animals, and he said, well, when we put them in the corner, you won't even know they're there. Well, with my farm background, I know pigs. I don't know how many of you have farm backgrounds, but pigs are smelly, they're very hard to keep in, they're always running under the fence and getting out and traveling wherever it may be, because my dad had pigs, and they were out, and little ones would go no matter how hard he tried to keep the fence, and until he got an alfalfa field for them, they had, I don't know, probably 20 acres, 15, 20 acres to run on, friendly, and that kind of kept them, so the little ones weren't always getting out. And they got into cockleburs, and that was the end of them. So, anyway, my other problem is, if you have these animals and sanitation issues, where are you going to go with the manure on this type of a small area? And this might get in water systems and so on too, which probably wouldn't affect my well, but that's another problem I have with that. And there's this legislative bill that's 17, it's not a bill, it's a statute, excuse me, but a statute is 17-1001 that says that if you're the second class city or whatever, that by ordinance, under future zoning regulations, that you can have them as the same force, in fact, as if they are in the corporate limits. And that's what I am trying to request is your corporate limits, you have, which I gave you last week, A and B on your zoning in your town, the restrictions on the animals. And that's what I would like to see, a resolution for my situation, as far as keeping a bunch of animals out of there. And so that was an A and a B, I think, on what I gave you last week. So this is kind of basically what I'm requesting. And if, you know, it was in your neighborhood, you know, how would you feel about it if you started having animals moving in? So I would request that, I know as you as civic people, you know, you do a good job and I appreciate that, and you're looking at my issue. And so I would really request that as your responsibility as civic people to try and rule in my favor of keeping animals out of the subdivision. Now, I know Ken had brought up the fact that there are other people along Old 7 Highway. You may not know exactly where I'm at, but where the Department of Roads is, you go on Old 7 or Meadville Avenue, and I am within the 1 mile jurisdiction. But these other places are not subdivisions, and that would be the difference. And so your livestock, feed yards and so on, and they're commercial, so they would be under some state laws on that too. And if there were any animals around, those could be grandfathered in, according to what information I have. But I don't think any of the animals along Old 7, where there's a couple of horses, and any of that, they aren't subdivisions, so that it shouldn't have any effect on what I'm requesting as a subdivision. Because I platted out all the number of feet in each lot, and this Mr. Smith that we bought it from took a corner out of his land, and I don't know the exact year. We, as I said, got ours in '82, and so a couple of people had started building there then. And he worked with the city because the road or street, he said he had to do 3 times, because the first time it was a Colorado surveyor, he didn't realize they didn't have a Nebraska permit. And the second time, the city wanted 30 feet wide street, and that wasn't what they wanted, I guess, so he went back and had to do the 60 foot. So it is a public roadway there, and so that information that I gave you last week on the survey plat shows all those footages and so on of each lot. And I am lot 2, clear to the south end, and the one we're talking about is lot 4 that is next to the roadway, county roadway of 879. So I think that's all I basically have to say, and request that you'll listen to my request and make the changes so that animals aren't allowed in a subdivision. You know, I think you in the city had a permit or something if you had animals, and like a goat was a half an acre, and if they have less than an acre, I don't think you can have very many animals. So anyway, that is what I'm hoping you can give me a resolution on that. And the other question I have, I know you said that you were going to speak to the city attorney. Did he have any information?
Yeah, I was gonna, unless you have more to give us, I was gonna say that we did contact our attorney, and he recommends against us making any changes. I think there's, you know, this is zoned ag residential by the city because it's in that 1 mile radius, but that's not the same as residential within the city limits to us.
But we're
The word subdivision to me, and we'll continue to look into this. We're not gonna, I don't think anybody's prepared to take any action tonight. That doesn't mean that we won't continue to look into it. To me, a subdivision is when the city is annexing something and they're gonna have a subdivision, they're gonna provide roads, water, sewer, and all that. It's not just drawing lines out a mile out of town. That's, to me, that's more the county decided to subdivide those parcels, and they can do what they want within that 1 mile. They do need city input, and I think that was the input the city gave, was on how that was drawn out. But there was never any intention to provide any water, sewer services, anything like that. And so to call it a subdivision, in my mind, is a bit of, it's semantics, I guess. It's not how I view a subdivision.
I don't know, just that the person that we purchased it from, and maybe he wanted more income and selling lots. And I think maybe people have come to him as far as wanting a place to be, and maybe it was a course of income. I mean, $3,000 a lot, that, and there's 8 lots, that would bring you in quite a bit of income back in that area of time. And as we were told, that it was not the idea that it would be at some point annexed into the city. And that was what we were told. Back then, we were told that we had a 3-mile jurisdiction rather than a 1, as it is now. And one of the reasons we wanted to be there, you had more room. You could have your garden, your orchards, trees. Another thing was the water situation. In town, when we lived there, your chlorination, your water would be white. And so with our well, we had good clear water, because we had a deep well. And so, of course, you're not just right on top of your neighbor either. But like I said, we've always known it was a subdivision. And so it doesn't seem like it should be governed any different than the subdivision in town, the rules. Because we had to get a building permit back then. So apparently there's some governing, but we're not getting any services, no. But it seems like then if you're governing as far as building permits, that we also ought to have some governing over the animals.
Well,
So, go
you're
ahead.
speaking to a fundamental difference that's been established by state statute. Ordinances apply within the city limits, and we could not do anything legally outside the city limits. The ordinance that you referenced, we could not enforce that. Once you cross the canal, for example, headed to your place.
Excuse me,
If you wanna
can I
put up-
interrupt?
If you want to put up a building, zoning is available there because, and like Lisa and I discussed this earlier this week, take the city of Omaha. They knew they were probably going to annex the city of Elkhorn, and that was quite a consternation when that happened years ago. But when Elkhorn starts doing something, those streets and sewers got to be platted out. They don't want a hospital, an industrial zone, etc. And so that's where it's prepared. And yes, the gentleman that sold you this, platted that out this way. But I don't think county limits, it's 3 acres now, right? So, those rules have changed since then, but, if they're gonna put up a giant shed, they gotta have a building permit.
And it was denied, as I understood.
But that could be, but if they're gonna run animal livestock, in my mind, they're no different than thousands of head of cattle and thousands of acres of corn within the mile limits.
I disagree.
Just because you live on a smaller plot of land doesn't make any difference. You're still outside the city limits, you don't pay city taxes or vote on city officials.
That's not what my attorney says.
Well, and our attorney's telling us absolutely the opposite. So,
Well, I'm Jim Marsh, her brother, and
Sure.
I guess one thing I'd reference would be LB 614, which was approved by the governor in May of '25. One of the sections says that any city of second class or village may apply any ordinance of any existing or future zoning regulations or property use regulations, building ordinances, electrical ordinances, and plumbing ordinances within the extraterritorial zoning jurisdiction.
But those were all building ordinances.
Property use regulations, does that also include animals?
Well, and as I understand, there's something called the Dillon Rule 2, that you as a local entity have the control over your entity, which we're in the 1 mile jurisdiction, and you apparently have control of that because you are saying I have to have a building permit and so on. So,
That's-
Dillon's rule basically says that the city has governance over itself, but only those powers in which the state requests. So the city can't just make up rules that aren't already designated within state statute. That's fundamentally what Dillon's rule says.
And again, you're talking zoning versus ordinances.
well, this is the extraterritorial zoning in the 1 mile jurisdiction.
And statute 16-901 states the city can exercise control in county zoning regulations are superseded if the city adopts an ordinance with respect to territory within the extraterritorial jurisdiction. So again, that tells that if there's any county regulations, I guess, or zoning that would be in effect, that you as a local entity have the right to supersede any county regulations.
I mean, if there were animal husbandry issues, animals are not taken care of, et cetera, you know, the county attorney and the county sheriff talk to those, but I'm speaking for myself from a practical matter. I'm not gonna attack your neighbor and let all the other livestock and crops around the city of Ainsworth.
Well, one
You
question
know,
I would have.
I can't do this for one person and do it for anybody else.
But they're not in the subdivision.
Well, I have a question, I guess.
That probably
Lisa,
doesn't
do you
make any
live-
difference.
Do you live in a subdivision?
I
Is
live
yours-
out of town.
Okay, I know you do, south of town. Are yours considered subdivision?
I couldn't even tell you that, to be honest. I know originally it was all owned by one individual, and it was, the lots were subdivided out for others to be sold and for houses to be built, but I don't know that we're considered an actual subdivision. Our driveway is private, and each of us that live out there own portions of that drive.
Okay.
So it's not an actual, like, county road.
That's what I was just curious if that was considered subdivision similar to Carroll's and as such. I mean, then
Right.
basically there's no protection for your area
Correct.
either. I mean, somebody could, create an acreage and bring in all sorts of animals too.
And with those, that's why a lot of cities have extended their city limits, especially large ones. Okay, now we're gonna go out a mile, 3 miles, et cetera.
Yeah.
So
But to do that, then you have to provide water and sewer.
You
so
do, you
that
have to
doesn't make
provide
it
all
very
the
feasible.
services and,
Yeah.
and they do that for those reasons, to protect themselves in ways.
Yeah, and that's kind of the purpose of the ETJ, as I've always understood it, is it's the county kind of giving the municipality a little bit of control over buildings, so that if there's annexation near the borders, that you're somehow you're able to assimilate those properties and those structures easily into what the
That's
city
what I
is.
did.
Unfortunately, we're
But to that
not growing
point,
enough to annex.
when you annex, you have to be able to provide water, sewer, infrastructure, and services, and so,
Like these other existing animals, as I understood, you could grandfather in, and we're talking about a subdivision, and I would think, here again, if there's other animals out there, which there are a few, that they would be grandfathered in regardless if that's what the problem is. So,
Well, I guess in order to move things along, even if we assume that the city does, according to that statute, the city may have the right to apply ordinances within the 1 mile jurisdiction. Does anybody care to make a motion or take any action tonight? Or
I'd want to have our city attorney dive deeper into that to see if as far as the subdivisions and stuff like that, to go further down that avenue. See,
I agree.
Because that's kind of what my attorney said, that, you know, it would supersede and you could make that resolution to change that to meet what your city in the corporate limits were. So that was what he had to say, that you as a local entity has a final say-so, even though there might be some other regulations over that.
Could I give you copies then of the resolutions that I was referring to?
I guess all I can tell you at this point, our attorney is recommending that we don't do anything. That doesn't mean we can't continue to look into it, but I don't think there's any chance we're gonna do anything tonight,
So, yeah, that's fine, consider it, I appreciate you listening to what we have on it, so,
we'll continue to look into it.
okay, well, thank you.
Thank you. Next item is to discuss and consider options regarding the cleaning and renovation of the Sellers Park Museum. We got a number of the folks here from the museum committee.
Thank you.
Well, I guess I'm reading from the very same thing that you have in front of you there, but the ladies behind me have been very busy for the last 6 weeks or so, putting all of this together and contacting a lot of people. And we have a lot of estimates here and bids. Originally, we were toying, well, I think the Sauls told us that restoring that North 1963 edition would actually be easy to do. And so we thought, oh, okay. Until we went to the basement and the walls are caving in, or the water's coming, you name it, it's wrong with it. So we contacted a company from Pierce, South Dakota, and that guy came down and he gave us a bid to restore the basement, which can be done, but it's $37,000. Was it $37,000?
35,700 or
And so we
something, just for
realized,
the
okay,
basement.
no, we can't. In order to keep that cabin, you have to restore the basement. We're not gonna spend $37,000
And
on
that's
the
just that
basement.
addition on that log.
Right.
Correct,
the north side.
the north. So,
Basements
what
was
the
37.
committee decided was that north addition has to go. And the demolition of the north cabin and to fill the basement, Bruce Danek has agreed to do all that for free. The whole ball of wax with his equipment and so on. And so then, to restore the original 1936 cabin, we have an estimate, or actually these are bids, from Wickett Construction in Valentine for $54,000. That would be, he's gonna replace the bottom 2 logs, which are completely rotten. I guess they have the ability, I didn't know this, but they have the ability to jack up the cabin, take the bottom 2 logs out and put 2 new logs in. I can't wait to watch to do it if we do it. I don't know how they do that, but
I'm
anyway.
gonna interrupt you, I'm interested you said that, because I know somebody said in one of our meetings, that cabin, the bottom, and I went and looked, but they are bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Those-
I thought the
those-
north cabin was the bad one.
But
That
there's
original
some, there's
cabin
some
is
raw
pretty
on
bad.
the original,
Yeah.
on the bottom, no doubt.
And then, so the same company, Wickett Construction, to redo the newest edition, including shingles and everything that's on those subsequent pages, $47,000. And then a company out of where's Environmental?
Norfolk.
Environmental Services out of Norfolk gave us a bid for the mold remediation and cleaning at $29,500, which is way less than that original company that we
So
talked to.
that was for all the artifacts too? That's not just, that's
It's
for.
the building and the artifact.
Both building and
and
the-
artifacts.
And he does it on site. They don't take anything to Omaha or anything like that. I think except for the clothing,
Except they were not sure. He did a lot of research on the clothes and it was holding the bid up. And that's a lot of different things that we're gonna have to find some specialty places for that. So we finally said, leave the clothes out, and so this is but that's cleaning everything, and he will help us too, if there's things we can clean, anything we can,
So 29.5 cleans everything but clothes.
everything but the clothes.
Including cleaning up the building itself.
And that's, yeah, interior of the building, and
So that's about $131,485.
What's your number? 131.45, 131.45.
131,485 and odd change.
Is-
So, anyway, I guess what we really kind of need from you guys tonight is a green light to move forward with the fundraising process, or, either yes or no, or,
I think you guys have done an excellent job on figuring out your direction. I think, putting this out in front of us, I like the direction you guys are planning on going, myself. Yeah, that north addition, way everybody's talked about it, is not salvageable, so the right thing to do is probably to tear that off and seal that north side up and get it to where the rest of the facility is usable, to make it into a usable museum.
we will consolidate the displays to the point where they'll fit in the remaining two buildings and, so.
Was there a price though on air conditioning and heating? Because that's one of the main reasons it got to where it was,
Right.
because it needed to be climate controlled. Did you guys check into that price?
We talked
at all?
about that, I don't know if we ever actually got a,
We talked about it a little bit, but Kristen said there was a grant that we could probably get for the heating and air conditioning. And so we kind of left that off, that once we got everything else done, then we.
Because that's probably gonna be something, if, we go forward with this, that's probably gonna have to
yeah,
be in
climate
there.
control is going to
yeah.
be important, very important.
How many square foot? Do you know?
I don't know what's that.
Pretty good
I'm not
size
certain
building.
either, off the top of
Just wondering, like how big of a unit is it taking?
It does have the heating in the east end, and that I assume works, doesn't it?
Yes, the baseboard electric heating works fine, it's just the air conditioning.
It's just the air conditioning.
What you really need is HVAC and the whole thing that you
Yeah,
can,
there's
you
some
just,
Mini splits
Yeah.
are not overly expensive, and they're not
You don't
overly
want to try to
intrusive.
put
so.
ductwork throughout and
no,
all
but
that
you
kind
need
of stuff.
to, you need to go set the thermometer and so it stays,
Right.
so you're not
Yeah.
doing like this
Right.
with your temperature
Yeah.
and it's taking your humidity out.
Control
Is
is
what you need.
Right.
I cannot believe, I don't know who to believe on the 29,000 versus what was the other cleaning bill?
140,000.
Yeah.
Are they both like,
Well,
is it gonna meet in the middle
of
or?
course, they were going to be in Ainsworth for 2 weeks with a whole crew. They were going to feed them, they were going to house them. They were going to pull everything the size of a salt shaker on up and give it a UPC symbol. I mean, it was incredibly labor intensive, and then take it all to Omaha and clean it and then bring it all back, so
Well, and then
you can
they were gonna
imagine.
store it too, and we didn't
And
know for sure
storage,
how long they
yeah.
were gonna store it.
Until a building was.
Ken, I think this is the same company that did the depot for us.
The
So
depot.
before we demoed the depot, we had to have that fumigated because it's essentially like fumigation. I mean, he's spraying it and it's,
Killing mold.
because we couldn't go in there, like
Yeah.
Bruce couldn't go into when we demoed. So, same company, I'm guessing he's doing the same method.
Well, do you prefer to save the whole thing, or, I'm just thinking from a heating and air thing, if you throw a wall in and just do that east addition on that, that would be easier to, how is it easy to maintain that in the log side? Does that get damp? Is that?
I don't know what you mean.
Well, we had discussed at the council here before about walling off just the east addition.
Oh, I don't think we want to do that.
We really need the room. I mean, we really need the room for a lot of stuff. And I think once we get it back to where it should be, I think we'll be able, Wayland talked some about the ceiling fans and the different, and like the split, that it would be workable. And that's that environmental service guy.
We really want to preserve what we have. I mean, we really don't want to.
Other than the north half, the north.
Yeah, but-
Right, right,
Yes.
right. Because that was the start of it in 1936. And since it can be fixed,
I think there are some notations on those subsequent pages. It would be a little less if we went with a steel roof instead of shake shingles.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, the only thing is it kind of messes with the aesthetic.
I know. But
But
definitely better for
I'm-
keeping your roof in better shape.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a forever roof,
Yeah.
essentially.
Well, they have
So-
issues too,
You know,
but you don't see too many wood shakes in town anymore.
no.
We also need to consider that this is a historic building. It is not on the register. However, any building over 50 years old, which would be this case, we do have to submit to the State Historical Preservation Office. So I think if you guys are okay with that, I think we should start that process now. They usually respond to us very quickly. You know, we just did another project in Ainsworth and we got it back in like a week. But I do think that it would be smart of us to do that sooner than later before we start.
Even for that addition?
Well, I think you need to put the whole, I think you'll disclose the whole location. Because we also have to go, in the maps, we have to show what's across the street from it. You know, I think before you go too far and start tearing things apart, Lisa, what are your thoughts? I mean, you've had to work with these two.
I don't know, I guess I thought that wasn't a possibility. I thought we had talked about that before.
So you're not
because
on
it
the
was-
register, you're not on the historic register. However, any building over 50 years old that potentially has cultural or historical value, whether it's not on the register, we still have to submit. So like, I'm gonna use the care center, we still have to submit the care center for that energy efficiency project.
For grants.
Yes, because it's over 50 years old. So I think we should, just so that you have that documented before you start.
So you can do grant in the future, that's why you're asking?
Well, yes,
Right.
for a grant, but anytime you're doing renovations to a building over 50 years old, you should be checking on it.
There's a house on North Main Street that disappeared and it's over 50 years old.
I don't disagree, but that wasn't my project.
We might agree to disagree on that.
So you're
I'm
saying we
saying-
should not
Yeah.
tear off the north half?
Well, I think we should just submit the appropriate paperwork so that we have the written letter back from them stating, yes, we've gone through all the processes, yes, they've approved.
Okay.
What if they don't approve?
I don't know. I don't foresee that happening, because again, you're not on the historic register. So that's part of, when you fill out the paperwork, you're showing, we have to take photos of all sides of the facility, anything that's adjacent properties. We're not in a floodplain, it's not a tribal area, I mean, there's some things that they look at. So, knowing that, I guess they have to give those agencies an opportunity to respond. I don't foresee that happening, and I think the Preservation Office would work with us, knowing the situation of, there's no saving this building at this point of the condition that it's in.
So-
But, I mean, really what you're asking tonight is, hey, we've got these new estimates, you're looking for a go-ahead to start fundraising,
Yes.
putting this package together. This
Yeah, we
isn't
want to
final deal
aggressively
yet.
start the fundraising process.
Yeah, and so, I think that's a simpler question than trying to
One
decide.
of
all
these
the
bids
details.
expires in July, so we have to tell them either yes or no.
yes or no.
We don't have to do it in July, but we have to tell them, yes, we take this bid. It may be 6 months, a year before we do it, but we have to tell them
But you're
something.
just looking for direction
Yeah.
tonight, or?
You know,
Or
we
your
want-
approval that,
Yeah.
And this
that we can
plan.
do this,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you need to secure funding though before you accept a bid? I mean, if you accept a bid and we don't have grant funds, you know, what are we gonna do to pay for it?
Well, if you accept the bid and you don't have your grant funds, why are they going to give us grant money if we've accepted a bid, knowing that we're going
Yeah,
to
I
pay
don't
that
think we
bill?
can accept the bids.
Well, we're gonna meet with the lodging committee and hopefully get some money there, and we would probably get enough there to cover this. The bid that expires in July is going to be the environmental services. And so if we accepted that bid, we'd have that grant that would cover that. Or you have that
Or we already,
yeah.
you have that $20,000.
And
That
a
would
lot
pay
of
for
times
that.
with governmental projects, because they do move at a snail's pace, unfortunately, especially when you're dealing with grants, because you have to Depending on the grant, it might require us actually to advertise and do like an RFP or an RFQ for these bids.
But these aren't bids these are just.
The 90-day proposal, I wouldn't be super scared about that, because if we lapse the 90 days, we just have to contact them later and say, can you update it for us? And yeah, it might go up a little in the price, but probably not super significantly if you haven't fundamentally changed the project.
So
That-
I'm
that
not
would
gonna
also-
throw a wrench in the works, but do they have the right to submit for bids? And if it's over $15,000 and it's a government property, then you've gotta have
Well, my
secure bids?
My experience with projects over the last 10 years here is, you know, especially when you're working with grant funds, and Kristen knows this drill, but, you know, you identify the project first, which I think you've done that tonight. I mean, you guys made the recommendation, it seems like potentially everybody's in agreement that that's the way to go. So then, you know, you take your estimates, then you work with Kristen, and then Kristen looks for grants, looks for opportunities, we write applications, and then depending on what we find out from that, kind of maybe dictates what you do next.
But I think my concern with doing one piece of this first, I mean, I know, yes, it needs to be done, and I understand the urgency, but my concern is if you would get lodging tax funds, that could potentially be matching funds for other grants. So if you spend it now, we've just gotten rid of that match. So that could change some things down the road for grant funding too, because you wouldn't have those dollars for matching funds.
And what would you spend the lodging tax dollars on?
The clean.
Oh,
So what you're saying, Christian, is do
I do
the
the
whole
whole
package
project.
all at once, right?
yeah.
Yeah, in a best case scenario, I think it
It's a
would.
slower process. It feels like you're not making good progress, but it's kind of like a game of phone tag, you know, where you start the process down here and it kind of has to trickle its way down.
Because I'm just thinking, like, if you're able to get some lodging tax money, like say for instance, you can get 30,000 of lodging tax funds, then you can apply for a matching grant, and then all of a sudden that 30,000 becomes 60,000.
Yes.
But if you've already spent that for the cleaning, then that
But we
money-
wouldn't have actually spent it, I mean.
No, you would
Because-
hold the funds, and then sometimes depending on the grant, depending on who the funder is, they might have specific requirements for how you spend the money, whether you have to bid let it, whether you have to, I mean, they themselves within the grant award might have certain stipulations. So you really kind of want to secure, when you're working with matching funds, grant funds, you kind of really want to shore it up and secure all of that first. And then you bid the project, then you do the project, then you report back on those stipulations. Because if you jump the gun and you accept a bid or you spend the money or whatever, it already kicks you out of whatever other potential grant opportunities there might be. Not necessarily local grants maybe, but anything state, federal, private foundation. They typically want to see the vision on paper first, give you the award, give you the stipulations, and then you're allowed to go. So if you do those steps in other orders, then it kind of already just kick you out of the funding pool.
If the lodging tax is willing to give you $100K with your 20 here, you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, if you can raise it
But
all
some-
locally, then none of that matters.
Right.
But my point is, it's still, no matter where the money comes from, I don't think they can go out and spend $100,000 at Wicked Construction without doing formal bids, advertising, it's a government entity.
Correct.
We gotta keep that in mind.
Yes, correct.
Well, good
Does the
luck
committee
finding-
understand where I'm going there?
Right.
We've got
If you
state
have
law.
to search really hard to find.
We have-
one
Right, and you
person
might
that-
throw it out there and you might not get any other hits, but it's
But
gotta be,
that's okay.
but it's gotta be thrown out there.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want everybody to keep that in mind, otherwise we're gonna get ourselves in
It's
jail.
a city, it's a.
And that'll be a requirement of any grant.
And when we advertise it, if you've been working with people, we can personally invite them to submit another document, to formally bid, so their hat's in the ring.
It kind of is like the pickleball court, you know, we asked
Right.
for bids and we had one.
But we had
So-
to ask for bids.
But we had to ask for the bids.
I don't,
We just need to know if we can go forward, right?
And they have to be advertised, what is it, it's over 15,000 to something, 3 informal, and it reaches another threshold, so it depends on how much money you're doing.
So if we get grants to pay for this, then do we still have to put it out for bids?
yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
the grants
If
will
you're
You're
city-
doing
city-
X amount dollars of work, am
The
I
city's
right?
actually spending the
Right.
money.
It's a
Yes.
city-owned building.
Yeah, the city is one.
If you do $131,000 worth of work and you raise 130, bless you. We still gotta do a bit.
Because it's
Fall.
wicked construction.
And it's
we're gonna
very
actually
likely
build
that the people you are working with will be maybe the
The
only
ones that
bidders.
do it.
Right.
So
Yes.
don't let that scare you.
But just
It's
don't-
just the
don't get ahead of
process
the-
they have to go through.
Don't sign papers with Wicked Construction.
Well, and, no, we just wanna know if we can start working on grants and stuff. That's, we wanna get going on this.
And
Yeah.
probably and Kristen can advise as you go through that, but probably the city will be the applicant on all of those
Right.
grants, just so that the city then receives the funds, so then when you go to do the construction, the city pays the funds. And most of those grants, sometimes they're a reimbursement, so the city would be the one paying it and then requesting the reimbursement, so she'll know all of that.
Well, and we've been, I mean, they've taken us on as a project already, so that step's done, if, you know,
Who is taking you on?
NCDC.
Oh, okay.
It's in the, everything, and that makes it tax deductible.
And then like the value of Bruce's donation can be used as match a lot of
Yeah,
times,
yeah.
so.
Yeah,
So, I'm not gonna be wet blanket, I'm just gonna, present company included, there's a lot of gray hair working on this committee. A town the size of 1,600 and a county about 2,800. Are we gonna be able to sustain 2 museums? I mean, I'm not being a
no,
jerk to
I,
all
yeah,
of
I
you.
get
That's a
it.
valid question I have. Do we have enough volunteers to do that down the road? And this project, if you raise the money, that's great, but that's still city money, upkeep, repairs, volunteer fee, you know, paying for your workers now. So, you know, I mean, if we take it on, that's great, but it's not a big expense, but it's always gonna be there. I mean, what do you feel about that? Because I brought this up, this comes from my mother, so you can blame her. If you go back a bazillion years ago, these two split into two, they used to be one. One historical society group, whatever it was.
Is that right?
You'll have to get the skinny from her, Sadie.
Okay, because
So- But anyway, you see, you know, we got a museum there and a museum there.
but you had 2 groups of people working on them too, and
I
there's
know
been
you
a lot of neglect in 30 years that we're trying to. In fact, there's a board off the side, we asked 2 months ago if it could be nailed back on, and it's still not done.
But I mean, do you see us sustaining this, even after do all this work? That's probably my bottom line.
I do.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
absolutely.
interest.
Once you get things restored and put back into shape, like it should have been the last 20 years, then, I mean, if you allocate $20,000 a year like you've been doing for upkeep and routine maintenance and, you know, paying somebody to sit there for 3 months out of the year, I don't see how it could not work.
Well, actually, if you could heat and cool, you could do it more than that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it could be open a lot more. Yeah.
Something I will say, this came out of one of our conversations, I haven't even talked to them about this, but from a community standpoint of future growth, I almost wonder if we need to have a foundation similar to the library foundation, like a Friends of the Museums Foundation, that could maybe help to keep up some of the maintenance and things down the road. Just an idea.
Well, that did come up in one of our other conversations. I think Mr. Lentz, Bill had said that. You know, a lot of places, and you'd said that, the mayor had said that, like if you donate X, that's great, but we also want you to endow our foundation with Y to keep up this artifact that you gave us. Which.
Of course, the problem is going forward, we probably cannot accept any more artifacts because
No.
we don't have the room for it,
Yeah.
you know, but, I
Although you
mean,
might get more down the road.
more room.
No more, you might get more stuff.
I know, but we can't take more stuff because we don't have the room for more stuff. I mean, especially if we don't maintain the log cabin part, then we're gonna have even less room than we do now. Because it's not all gonna fit. There's a lot of stuff
Well-
in there, yeah.
If you guys wanna raise money, go for it. As long as we get everything on the up and up. It's over in January.
Yeah, I don't know if, do we need a motion? Do we-
We just don't know what to do. I
So
mean,
that it's in the minutes.
Yeah, we need a
I need a motion to proceed with,
Because I mean, even though we're giving them the green light, it's still gotta come through us to be approved, bids, all that. That's how we word it.
I'll see if I can, correct me if it doesn't sound right. I'll make a motion that the Barton Museum, we call them the committee, moves forward with demolition of the north addition, and go after funding to redo the original log cabin, the east addition, and environmental, and get rid of the mold and clean of the items.
as all one project,
That's all one project.
because they're all tied together.
I will second that.
You second that?
I seconded that.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion?
So demo, construction, and cleaning.
They're going after funding or?
Give them the green light to go after.
Go after
Grants.
They're gonna
That's for
start-
grants and,
They're not asking for any money from us.
Right.
they're
Just
not
that
accepting any
20,000.
bids, they're just going after.
Just that 20,000.
Going after,
Yeah,
they're going to
they're-
fundraising, they're going to do fundraising.
They're not gonna go demo the north addition tomorrow.
Can't do any work yet, we're just.
Yeah, that's
This
the
is
way you, the
This is
way,
the vision.
the way Brad said it,
Yeah, the way you said it.
had me
kinda-
confused
Got me
too.
confused a little bit, like you're gonna go demo.
Well, see,
tomorrow.
yeah, correct me if I misspoke on how to do that.
This is just approving the project concept to restore the old cabin and maintain the east addition, eliminate the north side. That's the concept. We're not doing any work yet, we're just approving that concept.
That's where I was in for concept. Thank you.
So, everybody clear on the motion? Yep. Any other discussion? Call the roll.
Brad?
Yes.
Kent?
Yes.
Dustin?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously. Thanks for your work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
We'll continue plugging away.
You will be informed every step of the way.
Don't go hiring anybody.
What?
Don't go hiring anybody.
Well, we were gonna pay ourselves.
Next to our
Thank you.
innocuous.
When the auditor comes, you can talk to me.
Okay, moving on, discuss and consider street closure from 3rd and Maple West to the alley for an event posted by Ainsworth Family Dental on Friday, June 26th, from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. I think this is, they're having a group come in with a band, little workshop for healthy teeth, I think. So, I don't think it's a big deal, but
Yeah, I think it's kind of like a little open house event. They're showcasing some of their services or something, and they're gonna have some equipment set up outside, so. It's just from that 3rd and, what would it be, 3rd and Maple, back to the alley going west there.
I moved it, well, I'm sorry, I don't need any discussion.
nope,
No discussion.
you can make a motion.
I move we approve a street closure from 3rd and Maple, west to the alley, on June 26th from 12 noon to 3 p.m. for Ainsworth Family Dental.
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? See, we still have time for discussion. Call the roll.
We'll shut them off.
Kent?
Yes.
Dustin?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Motion carried 4-0.
And I'll notify the fire and ambulance on that closure for that time period.
Thank you.
It's a very usable, we use up a bit, so.
Okay, well, next item is to discuss and consider recommendations by the Ainsworth Betterment Committee, better known as ABC, to approve a request amount of $2,500 to the Ainsworth Commercial Club and Ainsworth Golf Course for the Ainsworth 4th of July fireworks display. This is sort of an annual thing, but this year it's special because it's year 250 celebration, so pretty cool deal.
Back in the day, I'm asking Brad, you know, the firemen kind of ramrodded it. And you're talking a certain class of firework that has to have.
Yeah, we did, back then we did where we had to be licensed.
Right.
We had to have training
Is that gone away? now?
because of the expense. If you didn't do that, you'd probably be looking at probably a $12,000 to $15,000 fireworks display.
Okay, so this isn't those class of fireworks. That's what I was asking, like.
These are more like the commercial anybody can go buy though.
Yeah, go next
So,
door
so
here and
it-
buy
so
it.
it'd be like some next door, which are pretty.
Yeah.
They're pretty good to say that.
They're a lot
Yeah,
better,
yeah,
they're a lot
quite a
better
bit
than
more
when I
than
was
they
a
used to be.
kid.
Well,
let me tell you that.
we were shooting off,
I couldn't
small
get-
ones were 3-inch, and we were shooting off actually 6-inch mortars.
Right, but you get a lot of, I had to go to South Dakota for bottle rockets, but that's
Yeah,
not.
when I was a kid, bottle rockets were a big deal. Now they're
I know.
illegal, but you can get
Yeah.
these
Wow,
things.
crazy. So
Like I
that
say,
was
we-
just my question,
Yeah,
is
we had
if we're,
we had to be trained every year, person had to be trained that lights them off and take
This-
training. And
this skirts that rule, they're smaller, but they're still decent.
Anybody can shoot these off, but I know they do it safely.
Yeah.
It's a good display, it has been, I mean, it's been a very good display.
Yeah, lots of people go watch, I know that, so. Anyway, that's the recommendation of the ABC, so I would say we should approve that. It's up to you folks.
I make a motion that we approve the recommendation by the Ainsworth Veteran Committee to approve the request in $2,500 to the Ainsworth Commercial Club, Ainsworth Golf Course for the Ainsworth 4th of July fireworks display.
I'm gonna miss it.
Second.
Motion and a second.
No
Any other
way.
discussion?
No way.
Call the roll.
Dustin?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Motion carried
Only if I
unanimous.
can tell
There's your headline, Aaron, city council approves lighting money on fire.
Only if I get to help set some off.
All right,
Better be
final
careful,
item
I
on
might
the
get stuck
agenda
with
is
that.
Lisa's administrator clerk treasurer report.
Just a couple of things. We would like to welcome Garrett Holland back. He is our new park lead as of yesterday.
All right.
So we're very excited to have Garrett. We've had a couple of other transitions. We're still advertising for a equipment operator in the street department. And we did lose our front desk lady, Sandy, so we're a bit short-staffed in the office. So we'll probably, we will hire that eventually again, but right now we're still stuck in some of the software transition woes. And I think Cody and I have some consensus that maybe we want to try to get over a couple of those hurdles so we can train efficiently when we hire that person back. So I guess bear with us in the meantime.
Where was Sandy's last day?
We're struggling through last week.
I didn't know that.
I think maybe if we can't find anybody for that, the new mayor
Could
could
do that.
step in and.
Kevin.
Just as long as you get started before you're done.
Otherwise, the new vac truck finally arrived to town. We tried it out. I think the guys think it will work. There was a couple of things through the demo and the training that we talked to McQueen about. They're going to fix those items, and you know, we raised some issues that we've had with McQueen in the past with some service issues after we purchased the equipment. And after those discussions, he has offered us a 1-year warranty on the truck. So
I did go down and did the training with them, walked through, and then went down and watched them at the lift station, pump it out, so got familiar with it, how it operated and stuff, so I was glad they invited me down to see it, so that was nice.
it's a fair bit bigger
It is.
than the one that we had before, but I think it'll do
Brad
us,
seemed excited. He
it'll do
said
us
it worked
good.
well.
I mean, it's better than, certainly better than what we had been using. Really, I'll be out of the office next week, so it's my annual conference that I have to go to get my continuing ed, so towards the end of next week. I
Don't
won't
sound
be
so
there.
excited.
It's thrilling.
You wanna go?
I really enjoy
There's stuff
it.
at the council there.
No,
If
it's,
you wanna go.
I typically learn a few things at least. Carnival will be here this weekend, so we'll have a detour up and ready to go Friday through Monday. And what else? There's a couple of pickleball. The stuff is ordered, so we're looking at about 7 to 8 weeks probably before it arrives and is installed. And then that will be done. And the care center, we had the joint meeting on Thursday, and there is another meeting slated for July 13th at 5 o'clock, another joint meeting. And it seems to be like that will probably be a monthly thing.
It will be, and it's, can I interject?
Yeah.
It's gonna be a process. The consensus there, though, of course, we had 3 boards. You had the care center board, which got 1 commissioner, myself from the city, and then you got some other appointed people at the county commissioners, and then you 2 made it. Some of you were off too far out. And everyone kind of realizes that if you stay in the same facility, you don't do anything, your time's limited, and the cost to rehabilitate is almost identical. It is identical, really, to the cost to build new. And that would be a real hard thing to do with people in there too. So we'll go through this process. The next thing, we engage feasibility study at the meeting on Monday. So we come back and say, because that was your point, Dustin, and it was like, what's this gonna cost? What would this look like as a bond? And ultimately, it's gonna go to the voters of the, I think both boards are, when I'm speaking about city council and county commissioners are both amicable that the city would back out of the agreement. Because if you're gonna do that kind of a bond, to be clean, we need to be a countywide bond rather than the dual bond we have now, which has worked for this. But we talked the timeline for that. I think the end of 27 is when that bond ends, and that lines up pretty good by the time you do a special election, maybe next spring, and then you start working your way towards that. So, but I guess I would say I'm excited that that's going to be a decision that's going to be in the people's hands, because that's a big thing to take on. And I don't think anybody could deny that the need's there, and you can't stay in that old building for so long. So.
I just hope there's,
But
something gets done
before, yeah, Friday from 11 to 1, the care center is serving food, so open to the community. So stop by and board members will be slinging hash. Sorry, I cut you off. I'm done. Speak.
Just said I hope the care center lasts long enough.
Yeah.
So Lisa, you taking the new mayor with you to conference?
They should come.
Yeah, you really should go, bud.
I hear
And
the
take
water,
notes.
I hear the water wastewater conferences are a lot more lively than the ones I go to.
Yeah, I suppose.
I heard some good stories. from
Probably
you guys,
groundwater.
and I'm like,
All right, anything else for the good of the cause? If not, adjourn at 6:27.
Your hour meeting get hold true.
Thank you.
I like the golf out on the house.